Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Stash Report from the Stash Project. Today's September 17th, 2018. Look at that, we're halfway through the month of September already. So it's a relatively short show this week, just because of the nature of where we're at with everything. We've the kit announcements we have for today, or kit announcements, the kit releases we have are all overseas. Still waiting on a couple of 3 things out of round 2. Round 2 did add, by the way, for people who, because I didn't mention this because it was just added in between the last couple of videos, they have added the 71 Duster to the September releases, supposed to be late September, probably going to end up being early October. Those late September seems to always sort of trundle over into the next month. But that would be the newer tool AMT Ertl era. It was 1997, 1998 when that kit came out. So that, we'll be getting another release. I want to say it's a definitely decent kit. I have one. It's one of those things that I have not built yet, along with, well, everything. But I seem to recall from the last time I looked at it being a pretty decent kit. Other than getting some new box art that's, vintage retro-y. It's not really, but it's sort of it's a variant of the Edsel and Chrysler 300 type of box art where it looks kind of vintagey, but of course that being a one of the really last kits that AMT Ertl made prior to getting bought out by Racing Champions. There's no vintage in that kit. It's vintage now because it's almost 30 years old, but at the time it was one of the newest things that they had done. I don't expect any changes to it in terms of parts or anything like that. As of right now, there's nothing in the actual description for it in the literature that we can access, determine whether or not it's going to have like the Street Machine, I guess would technically be what it was, version. May recall that there was a separate Street Machine version of that kit available at one time that had sort of a Dodge Viper intake on the 340, which was ridiculous, but it was something that people were already talking about whether or not it's going to be in the kit. Don't know that as of yet. Let you know as we get closer to that being released. And, that's sort of the kit announcement for this video. In Revell news, they put out sort of a presser that came through Kalmbach Publishing, or Kalmbach, however you want to pronounce that. It was actually in Fine Scale Modeling, if you want to look it up online. Basically, saying that the warehouse and new facilities in Northlake, Illinois, which is a Chicago suburb still, but it's obviously not in Elk Grove Village anymore. Lou Aguilera is still going to be the president of Revell US underneath this new Revell, the Revell umbrella. So basically, old guard, same as the new guard, so to speak, is he was the the executive vice president in charge of Revell underneath Habaco's thing, because being a division of Habaco, he wasn't really president of Revell because it was not its own company. So, we had already mentioned that 3 weeks ago when the finalization of them having an actual office here in the United States was becoming available, that they were rehiring a number of the original Elk Grove Village staff. So, it's one of those things where, again, we talked about the 2-3 weeks ago. If the reason Revell was sort of the way it was because of financial issues, and it won't have the same financial issues straight up front, then I'm all for having the same people be in charge. If that, Revell is the way Revell is because of the people in charge, then, we'll see. And, for the people who are like, what? Well, we've always talked about this. Revell has, when they're last 4 years, I would say, at least 3, really since Habaco started digging the hole that it got itself into when it went bankrupt, they've always had that sort of what I call the 3 things issue with every single new release. It had one great big stupid mistake that was easily correctable had anybody been paying attention. One sort of silly mistake that really didn't make or break the kit, but it was just annoying that it was there in 2018 or 2017. And then there would be one just goof up. A great example of that would be the original release of the new tool for Bronco. Remember, the wheels on that are ridiculously small. They're like 12-inch wheels. And then the grill is not quite right. The body curve is not quite right. And then the decals were screwed up. And those were the 3. So, that, again, could have been a function of the financial strain they were under. So I'm willing to give everybody there the benefit of the doubt. the one thing we were discussing online recently within some of the forums that I'm in is the fact that this new version of Revell, at least in the U.S. sense, is not going to have any of the financial constraints that the company had on it prior to it going bankrupt. Because if you recall, Blitz bought out all of Revell of the United States stuff for $100,000. Remember, it was like $49,999 for the tooling that belonged in China, as well as the tooling that was in Illinois. Now, of course, we realized that at least a little portion of that tooling was resold to Atlantis, so at least they got some of their money back there. And then they paid $50,000, give or take, for, I think it's $50,000 one, for the trademarks, the trade dress and all that stuff, all the monogram Revell names, Snap Tight, all of the various little, Revell Muscle, Motorsports, Motor City Muscle, all those little trade names and brand and then little segments that kits are broken down into so they can be sold in mixed case assortments to large retailers like Hobby Lobby. So you think about the Grease Ford is going to be one of the first things to come out, and there's a couple other things that'll pop in there. I don't know what the Grease Ford will sell because I think just in general there'll be people who want that 48 Ford convertible, regardless of whether it has the movie tie-in or not. There'll be some people who buy that just for the movie tie-in, I suppose. And then, you take a step beyond that, looking at the end of this year, you have that modified reissue of the 69 Mustang, which supposedly is going to have a fixed front end on the body, and I think that will be a very popular kit. I know that's something that I'm very interested in, personally. And then you have the new Tool 68 Chevelle that is going to come out. If the 69 Mustang and the 68 Chevelle would both sell out runs, basically, 5,000 kit runs, just sell them out and have to make a second run, that would, in effect, because the tooling was bought so cheap and all of that debt was erased, pay for the $100,000, in the span of like 90 days, if not the reissues and everything else that's being released. Could pay off the entire, amount that was paid for Revell United States. And at that point, Revell USA just starts making a profit. The only expenses it would have would be, tooling up further things, designing further things if they're going to be doing that at all, and then of course just running plastic through the injection machines, buying boxes, buying decals, having the instructions drawn and the decals drawn and things like that. It's, I would like to see, and I don't know if it's necessarily a possibility, depending on how they look at what's going on, of having them sort of ramp up the releases a little bit when it comes to some of the stuff that exists, like, the 29 and the 30 Ford. I know a lot of you guys really want that tooling to come back in the sense of having those two original kits come back out, but there's also got to be more stuff in there. They didn't make that just a two-version tooling. There's obviously going to be other things on the 68 Chevelle, the 69 Chevelle. There were Yenko Chevelles. There were Baldwin Motion Chevelles. It would not at all shock me to see a Chevelle that has some sort of drag attachment to it, the way that the 69 Nova did. You recall the Nova came out as a Yenko that was wrong. Then it came out with a 350 that also had a drag racing option built onto the backside of it, and then it came out as that Copo Nova that doesn't exist that fixed all the issues that the Yenko had. I would expect to see more than one variation, possibly 3, 4 variations of the Chevelle, depending on how well it sells. But all of that tooling is done at one time. Successes in the past. When tooling is cut, all of the versions of the tooling are cut at one time. It's not a situation where they cut the 68 Chevelle, and if it sells well, they go back and cut the 69 tooling. All of that stuff was cut at one time. It just, you gate off the parts you don't need, or there are inserts that you don't put into the machine to run. So, being that you don't have to, in this case of the 68 Chevelle, you don't have to sell a whole bunch and then see whether or not you can it's financially viable to run the other things. All the tooling is done. Just crank them out. I'm not saying every 90 days give me another version of Chevelle, because you end up oversaturating the market the way Mobius did with its pickup truck kits. But every 6 months or so, give me another version of the Chevelle. You look at stuff like the 69 Camaro, it has like 5 versions of that kit, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just trying to take a quick peek here at my 69 Chevelle, or 69 Camaros, so they're mostly here. You have the original 80 was a 1988 kit, and then there's the convertible, the Baldwin Motion, and the Yenko, and then the ZL1 that came along after they tooled up the poverty caps in the Copo Nova. So there's 6 versions of the Camaro. 3 or 4 of those came out of the span of 3 or 4 years at the beginning, but we didn't get the ZL1 Camaro until the tooling was 25 years old because of tooling up a set of hubcaps. So I'd like to see a more expedient release of things that exist. They obviously have a whole bunch of stuff that they were already designing, already had in the process, like the 68 Chevelle was obviously already in test shots by the time that Habaco went bankrupt. Go ahead. There's no, like, so you're working with like house money at this point. You have no debt. You have nothing looming over your head. There's no giant corporation that owns you slowly sinking into a sea of horror. It's the best thing for Revell. So hopefully, like I said, we will see a more constant release of newer things. It won't be so dependent on reissuing the same kits over and over and over again to generate funding, because now a little bit of funding will pay off the debt that Blitz has for Revell of the United States, and off we go. So I'm not the biggest purchaser of Revell things in the first place, just because some of the stuff they do just doesn't interest me. If you look at the stuff that's on that list of things we're supposed to get before the end of the year, there's 2 kits, the Mustang and the Chevelle, and that's pretty much it. Everything else I already either have, or it's just not my cup of tea. And it may be your cup of tea, and it's like, again, it's nothing against like Revell. What are they doing? It's just I would not purchase that. That's just me. So yay Revell. Hopefully things go well for them. Just we need if Revell is the only way you get new kits, really, because Mobius is small and Round 2 doesn't do that kind of thing. So I'll be interested to see what else that they were working on prior to the bankruptcy. The interesting part will be once they exhaust the projects that were in play prior to the bankruptcy, what will we see out of a domestic Revell? So I don't know. Anyway, on to the kit releases for this week. Like I said, it's all overseas stuff. All of this is modified reissues or just straight reissues. It is what it is. It's just that time of month. There's no new toolkits scheduled for this month anyway. So over at Aoshima, we've got a few restocks. Again, these are just putting things back on the shelves. Reissue of this is Mitsubishi Galant A. Is, of course, the captive import that Dodge would later, unfortunately, import and try to brand as a car. Same kit as it always is. It's an old motorized kit. Just a restock. I think not a lot this last day. I mean, this kit has been released 4 times in the last 3 years. So I mean, at this point, I've said all I can say about it. It's just back. This is also a reissue. The Cunny Z 1998 Toyota Chaser JZX 100. This, of course, the old D1 Grand Prix card, just without the D1 Grand Prix actual livery to it. And then also the 1998 Toyota Chaser JZX 100 Toyota Racing Development Kit. So this was just reissued not that long ago, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. Those 2 kits are effectively the same. The only thing that's different about them is the ground effects and the wheels and things like that. The interiors on both of them are stock. The chassis and all the running gear parts are all the same. So it's just what it looks like when it's done, basically. So those 3 Aoshima kits are out. There's one reissue, well, actually 2 reissues from Fujimi. This will be all of their kits for September that are slated at this point, because the Elgrim, wow, that's a Nissan van. The Alphard has already come out. This is the Honda Civic Type R. This is the early version. This kit has not seen the light of day in probably 10 to 12 years. It has a completely different front end on it compared to the other EG Civic that they do, the other Type R that they offer. The bumper, I believe, is molded into the body, so this is the first time this body has been shot in a little while. Other than that, the kit is pretty much the same as the other Civic. There's the running gear and the interior and all that sort of thing. The parts are the same in both. It does have a left-hand drive dashboard and left-hand drive windshield wipers, but they're technically not the right dashboard for a Type R. You could always just claim that it's a Type R body kit on a U.S. Civic. Would anybody know? Probably not. The other Fujimi reissue for this month is the McLaren Honda MP46 for the Japanese Grand Prix of 1991. I also believe that you can build this as at least one other. Also, as a San Marino Grand Prix. The kit obviously is a Marlboro-sponsored McLaren. The Marlboro logos, of course, are not in there. Shunko is reprinting their decal sheets for this car this month, so there is a way to go back and get the Marlboro stuff for it if it matters to you. This kit does have a very, very detailed engine in it, which is, a lot more than a good deal of the 120 scale F1 cars that Fujimi did. It's sort of that sweet spot of Fujimi where they were, really well capitalized, I guess, in the sense of being able to afford to do things. And, it's a 120 scale F1 car. I really can't tell you a whole heck of a lot more than that, but it does have way more than just like two engine halves slapped together. It is probably a 25, 30 piece engine. So if you're interested in F1, that's always an option as well. Another modified reissue we got this month is this. This is the Honda Civic EF9 kit from BMAX. This, of course, is they say Group A, but this is Japanese touring car Group A. It has the Idemitsu Motion Mugen livery on it here. The decals for this kit will include all of the red and silver parts. So all you have to do is paint the car white. The decals will allegedly do all of the rest. This kit has an entire parts runner of new stuff, new front bumper, new hood, new rear bumper, new exhaust. There are now those little intakes you saw in the picture there underneath the bumper for the brake ducts are new. The glass is new in terms of the turn signals and the headlights. There's also a couple of other little bits and pieces here. There are another set of the 5-spoke wheels in here. You may recall the EF3 Civic had two different sets of wheels in it because the car ran with a lighter set of wheels on the dummy axle out back, obviously Civic front-wheel drive car. This car in 1991 had matching sets of 5 spokes, so they had to include another set of the wheels in there. And other than that, the base of it is all the EF3 Civic. There are currently 2 other sets of decals available for this kit already from Decal Pool. They make either the Mooncraft, which is the Jax Civic, which is all of that crazy red, orange, and green livery. And then there's also the Pia, the number 15 car, which is basically a version of what the original kit was on this. The Pia headlights. With a white car with some black stripes and things like that. So like I said, those 2 decal sheets are available from Decal Pool already. Be interested to see what other liveries are done for this car. There were, I want to say, 5 of these run in 1991, but the other 2 or 3 of them were teams that were not quite as well known. So chances are you probably won't get any other of those decals. I'm not sure if any of these will run in Macau. I'll have to get with Frankie on that. And, so there's that. Also, there is a separate decal upset for this. This decal upset does not include a carbon fiber little decal sheet for the seat. So I'm assuming the seat was a little bit different. The seat may also be new in this kit as well. So your photo etch here, basically a very simplified basic thing. You got your tie downs for your fire bottles, your tow hooks, your brake faces, your windshield wipers, and then all of the hardware for the seat belts and things like that. You get seatbelt material, and then in the little plastic baggie there, you get the injector for the air jack, as well as a base for antenna. And it's kind of hard to see in the picture, but there is a little piece of metal in there for the antenna as well. So your car will have a proper antenna. You want to do that stretch sprue nonsense that Tamiya liked to do back in the mid-90s with all of their kits. And then we have 2 modified, actually 1 straight reissue with new decals and 1 modified reissue from Hasegawa. Disappointingly, it's not a modified reissue of this, which is the Jaguar XJS HE TWR race car. This has the 1982 European Touring Championship modal livery in it. What is very unfortunate about this kit is that they did not tool up a set of wheels for this. Clearly on the box art, showing you a set of Centerlock BBS E50 rims. What you get in there are the 1984 season rims, which were perfectly perfectly fine for a 1984 season car, but they don't represent the accurate set of wheels that come with an 82 or the 83 season car. This set of decals itself, this modal livery, was available for Studio 27 for like $18. It's a great deal cheaper than buying the entire model kit, which is $28. I had one of these on pre-order because I was hoping it would have a set of the wheels in it. I really didn't care about the kit one way or the other because I already had the decals for it. But I would have liked to have had a set of wheels that I would not have to scavenge out of either the Sierra kit or the BMW 635 kit, or going out and buying a set of like aftermarket rims from, say, Scale Productions. Not anything against Scale Productions, I just, buying wheels for something that I don't need. So yeah, it's molded in metallic green, so it's sort of this color, but I'm just disappointed in the fact that they didn't do anything with the wheel option. I understand it was an expense, but when you consider the number of little bits and pieces that they tooled into the Civics, the Corollas, and all of that stuff to make the suspension lower and cambered more correctly like a race car, it's kind of disappointing they didn't spend, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000 to tool up a set of good BBS racing rims, or maybe even take the set that's in the Skyline that they just did and put them in here. I'm not sure the 89 Skyline rims and the 82 rims, BBS E50s are sort of the same universally, but it may not fit size-wise. But like I said, it's kind of a disappointment just because I already have this livery, so I didn't need this kit. I was only buying it for wheels, and so yeah, Hasegawa did not get my money on this one. And then the other modified release that they did this month is this. This is the Honda Civic CVCC GLSC1 two-door 1975. Yeah, lots of words, lots of letters. This is the variable timing car, basically, that they did in 1975 onwards through 1978, which is the end of the first-gen production run. It was basically an emissions deal as far as the engine goes. There is no engine in this kit, so it doesn't really matter. Basically, all you're doing here is applying the CVCC badges, which were in the original kit. Obviously this was coming, since the original kit has them. There are a few bits and pieces here. There's a new front bumper, new turn signals up front. I believe there's a new rear bumper as well as new rear taillights involved. I think the front fender mirrors are new. The wheels are most definitely new. And then I think there's one or two pieces about the interior that are new. Just because of the trim level that's involved. So, again, this is one of these things where, like, okay, you're selling me a second Civic that's just a few pieces different from the original one, but you can't tool me a set of wheels for the Jaguar. Ugh. I know, I keep harping on it, but it's just a disappointment. I was really, really, really hoping that they would put the right wheels in there, because I've got 2 or 3 liveries that need those mesh wheels, and they did not show up, so... At any rate, guys, that wraps it up for this week. Hope you had a great weekend, and we'll see you guys on the other side.